I love that song. So, how you guys doing? You holding up? Yes, it's good to see all of these people here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm excited about this conversation because it essentially picks up exactly where this last panel left off. So, Jonathan, why don't you give us a quick 2-second overview of your role with LinkedIn?
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Jonathan Lister. I run marketing solutions for LinkedIn. This is the line of business that we're using to sell marketing tools to all the CMOs. I've been at LinkedIn for 3.5 years and 20 years in the industry.
One of the things that I think is most fascinating about the idea of content in the role of marketing and branding is that whether or not we realize this, I think I'm going to kick it off with this question, is that LinkedIn is now a publishing company. And you're becoming a media brand. And not only a media brand, but you have the world's most renowned business professionals as your authors. So tell us a little bit about the LinkedIn Influencer Program and sort of what's its intention.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start by saying, we're a very members-first organization. We aspire to make all our members more productive. And when we went out to our members a couple of years ago, we asked them, look, how can we help you? How can we make you more productive? And they resoundingly said, give us content. They said, help us, the way you can make me more successful in my job is to give me great content. And we embarked on a program a couple of years ago to go do just that, to effectively become a content marketing platform, a professional publishing platform, which is what we've done. Influencer is one of the things that we've done. We have done things like build what we call the Today Network, which is 1.5 million publishers that recirculate their content back to LinkedIn members based on what they do for a living. But what Brian's referring to, the Influencer Program, is our first stab at original content on LinkedIn. We went out to, at the time, about a year ago, 150 of what we considered to be the world's most influential people. And we invited them, and only them, for the first time ever, to long-form post on LinkedIn. And they were people like Richard Branson and Deepak Chopra, Bill Gates, Brian Solis, and it's been a resounding success. And one of the things, one of the anecdotes I think is really interesting, what we're seeing is, on average, these influencer posts are getting about 100 comments. And if you think about the number of comments that people get on posts and articles around the web, it's a half a dozen or so. And I'll point to something Brian posted. The Altimeter study a couple of days ago has 44 comments on it already. And the thing that's really interesting, though, is that these are not 1 or 2 word comments. These tend to be really kind of deep, rich comments because they're so targeted to professionals. So that's our first stab at original content. We've done a number of other really things to build out a content marketing platform, including our native ad product and a number of other things.
Before I ask the next question, Todd, the timer needs to be put on the screen so that we don't run too late. Now, with that, though, content marketing and content...
I can watch the clock for you.
We'll go old school. That's what this watch is for. It tends to be relegated as a function, right, or a department, or it tends to be outsourced. But what we're seeing with LinkedIn, what we're hearing from all other kinds of brands is that content is becoming more and more important, right? But how do you see content playing a role in the future of business?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're already seeing, again, if I go back to the Altimeter study, right now we're seeing social media being held in a number of different departments. It's being held more broadly than just outside of marketing and communications. It's really, to me, what's really exciting is it's the advent of social and mobile that has enabled content to become a tool broadly used for business. If you think about it, content marketing isn't new, right? Content marketing, lots of examples. I like the John Deere example. John Deere invented or was outselling the steel plow back in the 1800s when everyone else used an iron plow. He didn't actually sell the plow. He went out and taught farmers how to farm. He created a magazine called The Furrow, which is a trade magazine. This has been around for a long time. What's different now is social and mobile have enabled the ability to deliver content in an efficient way at scale to new audiences, right? Now that's changed buyer behavior. Like buyers now, far down the sales cycle before they ever reach out to marketers. But at the same time now there's this tool for marketers. And even 2 years ago, marketers, I think about 18 or 19% of them said that content marketing was a leading initiative for them, and now that number is already 35%. So it's enabled by social and mobile, and I think that's what's going to drive a lot of the business use for the foreseeable future.
One of the things that I find most interesting is that my mic only works sometimes. But in addition to that, in addition to that, is this idea that we hear a lot about storytelling in terms of content.
Yeah.
But yesterday what had come up that I thought might be applicable for this discussion is the idea of utility, right? So let me give you an example. When people are looking to make a decision, or when people are looking, like just a discovery process, right? They'll go to Google, but sometimes they won't, right? Sometimes they'll go to YouTube, sometimes they'll go to their social networks, sometimes they'll go to LinkedIn, and they'll ask questions about have you, can anyone, and what's interesting in those moments of truth is that it's often a link that comes back, and it's a link to content. So what do you see in terms of the role of content becoming more utility driven?
I didn't know this question was coming, but I love this question. And the reason is, one of the things, again, we ask LinkedIn members what they want. They tell us, give me content, but literally they say, give me content that's useful. Actually, they say, give me insights, but they say, give me content that's useful. And we're seeing marketers and other organizations, when they deliver content that is useful to, in our case, members, there's incredible amounts of engagement. And if you think about it, it makes lots of sense, right? Buyers are far down the cycle. They don't want to be sold to. They've already made all kinds of decisions. The way that we can help buyers earlier on is by informing them, educating them, inspiring them. And it's when marketers do that that they kind of earn the right to build these deep relationships that we all talk about. There's a great example I love from Lowe's. I think back in May, Lowe's created these life hacks, these 7-second videos on Vine that were all about giving these really handy tips to new homeowners, like simple things like how to unscrew a stripped screw or screw something in with a cracking tile. 7 seconds. So if you think about it, if you're a new homeowner, there are very few sales cycles that are longer than someone who's just bought a home is going to have. So these people are at the very tip of the spear, and Lowe's is giving them this kind of informative, educational content. Great example. And therefore, Lowe's now has kind of built the credibility to build these deep relationships with folks, and that's what we're seeing the most effective content marketing do.
All right. So in the Lowe's example, it's not uncommon to hear a question from someone that sounds something like this: what's the ROI? So how are brands effectively tying content to, say, business metrics, or what are you seeing in the metrics industry? Right.
So again, I'll go back to Altimeter strategy. The Altimeter study that came out a couple of days ago also points out that while that social marketing roles are spreading out through organizations, and the fact that there are few companies that have a really concerted strategy. So I think it's more and more important, of course, to build these really important strategies. Once companies and marketers kind of start to build these relationships, if I'd use the Lowe's example, once you've got that content and you've built some credibility, then content marketing is really effective at creating impact at all stages of the buying cycle. We've seen it can drive awareness, it can drive consideration, activation, lead gen. Lenovo on LinkedIn sees a 17% brand uplift because they're driving awareness through content marketing. Citi does an amazing job with community, kind of mid-funnel consideration, because they built a group and they measure group size of growth, engagement. HubSpot does a lot of lead generation. They get 400x the leads on LinkedIn using sponsored updates, using native ad products. So once you've built the credibility, then content marketing, I think, is really good at delivering lots of impact through the different stages of the funnel. It's better to go out and build the credibility first, I think, than to do these little tactical things.
Right. So my next question has a little bit to do around the funnel, right? Because what I think content misses often is this idea that your customers, their peers, they go through this journey, right? And there's different stages of it. And as such, there's different forms of content, I think, that could serve a purpose in there. One of the best examples that I had heard recently was this obscure business-to-business company that just did a keyword anthropology study, which, by the way, was fascinating because they learned that there were about 8 to 10 questions that their customers were asking over and over and over again. And when you run that search, you start to see what kind of content comes back, and it was very little, actually. So they started to create content around those questions where the headlines were the question and then the word answer, reveal, solve. And those became sort of the top searches. So their lead gen went up 600% in 6 months just from sort of tying into that journey. So when I think of LinkedIn, I think it's an incredibly qualified business network, right? So we hear a lot about Facebook editorial calendars and Twitter editorial calendars. How can brands and businesses work more effectively on the LinkedIn platform when it comes to content?
Sure. So, I mean, we're doing a lot of work to guide brands and help them build editorial calendars and content and all those things, absolutely. But we're also doing a couple of things around analytics and measurement that I think are interesting. So one is we are creating a tool to assess who is engaging with content, when and how, in different areas, so that effectively that guides content strategy, so that we can go back to brands and say, you know, if you're trying to talk to law enforcement officials or IT directors in, you know, company size 1,000 or more, here's the kind of content that they are interacting with over this period of time, and in what way. Here's what's growing, here's what's shrinking, and you can build a content strategy that way. That's one. The second thing that we're doing is building, in effect, a tool that helps measure influence. So how influential is your company at delivering content marketing relative to its peers, its competitors, or whatever other set of organizations you want to get measured against?
All right, and so the last question is, what's next for you? And not just for you personally, but I mean, yeah, I know, like in 1 minute you're gone, but before that though, LinkedIn. What's next? I mean, content's a big play, right? And it's as an author on the Influencer program, I've never seen so much incredible engagement, not since the days I first blogged, actually. So what's next for brands? What do they have to look forward to?
You know, expect us to do a lot more around content marketing. We've built a content marketing platform and ourselves have become a content marketer. We believe we are probably the definitive professional publishing platform in the world, so look for us to make a lot more investments in content marketing and in the publishing platform, and maybe specifically in sponsored content. You know, we launched our first sponsored content product, Sponsored Updates, a couple months ago. It's doing extremely well, but it's doing well because sponsored content it works off of content that is already engaging. So once content works, you know, we give organizations the opportunity to make it work better. Just sponsor it, send it to a different audience, and it works really well. So lots more there.
Excellent. Jonathan,
Thanks,
you
man.
so much.